Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, migraine strategist, founder of the Facebook group Migraine Nation, and chronic daily migraine survivor. I am super excited to tell you that I am here today with Dr. Buse. Dr. Buse is a clinical professor of neurology and a psychologist specializing in headache. Hi, Dr. Buse, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Weitzel. Good to see you.
I'm so excited to have you back. We always have Dr. Buse on when we talk about things like cognitive behavioral therapy, anything that we can do to improve our lives with migraine. And it is now holiday time, and it is COVID time, and they are intersecting. We have lots of extra stress added to our lives, and we want to talk about skills we can use so that this extra stressful point does not trigger our migraines, making them worse, making our migraine disease worse. So what do you have to say as an intro, Dr. Buse?
Well, thank you, Dr. Weitzel. So this is important as a reminder. Everyone living with a chronic headache disease already knows that life is different and harder in some ways when you're navigating life with a chronic illness like a chronic headache disease. We already know that. So we've got that layer happening. As you mentioned, this is a pandemic year. If you're watching this during 2020, we're all in this together. We know that things are surging. This is a very hard time. There is sometimes conflicting information, and people in your life, people in the world, people in our government give conflicting messages and have conflicting opinions. So it has not been an easy time for any of us by a long stretch of the imagination. So we've got chronic migraine, chronic illness, chronic headache diseases, we've got pandemic, and then holidays. And I think one thing that's important to remember is that a lot of times we go into holidays thinking about these idyllic Hollywood moments of what the holidays could be or should be or what they wish they would be. But it's really important to know that holidays are a very hard time for many, many, many people for many reasons. They may trigger memories from childhood which were unpleasant. People may be going through life stressors, be they anything from financial to illness to family constellation to divorces to all sorts of life challenges. And people may have already existing conditions like depression or anxiety or panic disorder, PTSD, substance use conditions that may be exacerbated by the stress. So it's important to normalize that for the majority of people, holidays may bring up some stress. So now we've layered 3 stressors on top of each other all at the same time. And so I'm glad we're talking today because we do have strategies and ideas.
Yes. And it's important to remember that the world is not a Hallmark movie. And there's all these Hallmark movies, etc. And we are trained to have this visual in our heads of what the holidays should be like. And so sometimes it is an adjustment of expectations. Especially if you have a chronic illness or a headache disorder. So let's discuss the topic of overwhelm. This is a word I've been hearing a lot lately. I think it resonates. What should we do when we are feeling overwhelmed this time of year?
Exactly. That is a great question. I think so many of us are feeling overwhelmed for a variety of reasons, the 3 I just mentioned, and you may have other consequences. You may have financial consequences this year. And unfortunately, the holidays are a time when we often think about spending money for gifts and events. You may have your children at home for virtual homeschooling, which you and I both do, and many of our listeners do. You may be caring for elderly or aging parents, you may be caring for other members, or you may be missing everybody. You may not be with anyone and you may feel quite isolated. Alone and lonely. There's 2 opposite ends of the spectrum that are happening here at the same time. So there's a lot of reasons that this is an especially hard year. And there's a lot of reasons that it's normal to feel overwhelmed. One, it's nice to normalize that I think most of us are feeling overwhelmed, a lot of us, so many of us. And when you go to some of these great kind of support places, whether you're looking on NHF websites or the American Migraine Foundation Move Against Migraine group, you can be surrounded by literally thousands of people in a similar boat. who may be also living with migraine disease, other headache diseases, and also feeling overwhelmed. That's validating. It's nice to
Right.
know you're not alone. This is qualitatively, this is hard, and you're getting through it, and you're not alone. I think it's important, Lindsay, you said adjust expectations.
Right.
I think living with a chronic illness, we always want to adjust our expectations. And this year, 2020 holidays during a pandemic, we need to adjust our expectations like no other time. So we all a lot of times go into holidays thinking these are the traditions. I must do X, Y, and Z. My house must look like this. I must buy all of these gifts. I must have everything perfect. And this is a year when you need to give yourself permission, when Lindsay and I right now are giving you permission for this year to be different, to not do what might feel like you're traditional or you're perfect, and that's okay, and let it go. Let's all just take a deep breath and let those expectations go this year.
Right.
And the whole world's in the same boat. That doesn't mean people won't be judgy. There are people who might judge, right?
We're going to talk about what to do with them later. Right. Yeah.
Be gentle on yourself, be gentle on each other, and adjust your expectations. And something so important about adjusting those expectations is that there's a scientific formula for happiness and well-being and satisfaction. And if you think about fractions, you put your reality on the top, and you put your reality on the bottom, and you put your expectations on the top. So you can either have improvement in your reality, or you can have reduction in your expectations. Both of them make you feel happier, more well-adjusted, more comfortable. So we're going to adjust those expectations. There's also a time that I really want to invite people to ask for and accept help. People living with migraine headache disease are such strong warriors, and they carry the burden on themselves, and they often don't ask for help. And often when other people ask to give help, they don't always accept it. And I want to say that by accepting help, you're giving that other person a gift. People who care about you, people who love you, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, if they're offering, they want to help. So please try and accept some help this holiday season too. It'll make you feel better. It'll make them feel better.
That's great advice. And an example of decreasing your expectations is if it takes days to decorate, it takes days to decorate. If you're someone that decorates your house, if you miss the deadline, we've got package delays. You are not the only one that did that. And it is not the end of the world. There's lots of things that are different this year, everyone. And if it messes with your peace of mind, it's not worth mulling over. So
Lindsay, one interesting thing, thanks, about things being different this year. One thing I'm hearing a lot of people living with headache disease talking about during the pandemic is the fact that there are fewer social expectations, responsibilities, office parties, gatherings, So for once, the world may be kind of meeting people with migraine disease where they are, with having actually less expectations. Now that's not across the board, but some people are noticing that they're having less responsibilities, less social expectations this year. And that's a bit of a relief for many people.
True. How about time management and self-care? Some of us are now working while teaching our children. And then of course we have to shop, cook, prepare for the holidays, stay safe, socially distance. What is your advice for managing our time and taking care of ourselves when we have migraine, cluster, NDPH, whatever headache disorder it is that we have at this time of year?
Right. So there's a big list. Everyone's list is different for you personally, but everyone's got so much going on right now. Now, we, of course, just talked about lowering some of the expectations on the things that you feel that you normally have to do during the holiday season. So maybe we're going to let a few of those go a little bit this year. Now, it's important to always remember our basics for self-care, living well with headache diseases, which are the SEEDS, the SEEDS. It's going to be that stress management. We can't necessarily control what happens to us, but we can control our reaction. And that may be any way that you get your stress out. It can be a formal kind of meditation. It might be an app. It might be yoga. It might be walking your dog. It might be watching a funny movie. It might be watching a Hallmark movie, whatever gets you there. Sleep. The holidays can be a crazy time for sleep. When you live with a headache disease, your neurologic system, your nervous system does very best with a very routine schedule. Try as much as possible, about the same time to sleep
Yeah.
every night, about the same time to wake up every day, getting enough sleep. It's not always easy, but keep that on your priority of self-cares.
Right.
Um, eating holidays can be a time for all sorts of eating of different foods that we know are maybe not the healthiest. Try to think about maybe indulge a little bit to enjoy, but try to generally stay on a healthy eating pattern for yourself, staying hydrated. Again, we may not be going to parties this year as much, so this may not be as much of a question as
Mm-hmm.
perhaps some years, but staying hydrated, trying to eat healthy, regular, balanced meals. Um, and so we're going to think about those basics that we know are always good any time of the year. But these are things that actually are kind of always thrown out of whack this time of year. So we really want to stick with
Yes.
those.
Big
Um,
trigger for me because I don't have many foods that trigger my migraine, but just the change in the eating patterns. And I also have to exercise at the same time almost every day. And that always gets messed up this time of year. What I'm
right.
eating, how much I'm eating, and when I exercise. And so that really causes me to have more migraines. So I can relate
Yes.
to, I love this and that the seeds that you talk
Yeah,
about. Go
let's
ahead.
stay on track as much as we
Yes.
can. Um, and then and just knowing that this is always a challenging time of year.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to think about what things can we let go right now.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking personally, when we've got work, maybe maybe you do have work, maybe you don't, maybe you do have children at home, maybe you don't. What can you let go? Can you let go of some of your housework or some of your yard work,
Right.
or can you let go of any of the holiday traditions that don't bring you joy? Hold on
Exactly.
to the ones that do make you happy, but this is the perfect year to let go of anything that feels too much, that doesn't make you happy.
That is an awesome message. I love that. Um, we don't, there's so many things in our lives that we just don't need, or we don't need to put so much energy to. Is nobody's going to die if I don't dust today type of a thing, and
So
so I
glad,
love
because
that.
my house would be a
Yeah,
disaster if if someone's going to die if I didn't dust. Don't come to my house.
exactly. So here's another one.
So we talked
Uh,
about letting go of things and traditions.
right.
Lindsay, what do you think about letting go of toxic people or people that
Yes.
don't bring joy?
So that was my next, the next thing I was going to bring up, because we are socially isolating more, but I think we still end up, whether even if it's virtually or just for a few moments or across the room, we will likely end up around some people in our family or extended family or something that may not understand our migraine disease. It's just
Oh, yeah,
what happens, or our headache disorder, excuse me. It's not everyone watching has migraine. And
sure.
this, what I want to point out, because I think that this makes people feel so isolated. It might be someone that understood for a while, then stops understanding. People, it can just rotate. This happens to everyone. Do not feel alone.
No.
What do we do about this? These types of people in our lives.
I'm so glad you mentioned this is universal. It is so
Mhm.
common. And this is a common challenge for people living with headache diseases. And this is
Mhm.
also a common challenge during the holidays. You're brought together with
Right.
people that you may have family ties with or long relationships with, who you may love, but you may not always get along with so easily. And it
Right.
goes back to a whole lot of events and emotions and feelings from childhood and growing up, and we're not going to undo them in one holiday dinner, of course.
Mhm.
So this goes beyond the pandemic and really goes beyond living with headache disorders, but kind of how do we deal with family members that we need to spend the way around from time to time, who
Mhm.
maybe aren't as supportive, aren't as understanding, maybe even are more toxic. So the
Right.
first thing is setting boundaries. And the first thing to setting boundaries is figuring out what are your boundaries. If no one was pressuring you, what do you really want to do? What do you not want to do? What do you need to say, just, I can't do that?
Mhm.
And we know that with headache disorders, they can be unpredictable. They
Mhm.
often are unpredictable. So planning often becomes a stress and pressure for someone with a
Right.
headache disease. You don't even know if you can commit. So first off, even that commitment, saying it's conditional. I really want to be there. I'm going to do my best. As you know, I live with this headache disease, which
Mm-hmm.
causes me to sometimes be unavailable. I might be late. I might have to leave early. There might be a chance that I can't make it. If that's not acceptable to you, I can say no right now and decline, because
Mm-hmm.
you make your family member say, well, how am I going to plan? How am I going to know how much to cook? How can I prepare if I don't know if you're coming? That immediately is going to push you into a guilty, defensive way of
Right.
thinking. And many
Yeah.
people are going to jump right into, oh, okay, I'll be there.
Yeah.
When this starts to happen, I like the broken record technique. It's a technique that tries to avoid conflict and avoid arguing.
Right.
All you do is you say your same message
Right.
over and over, and you don't say more than that message. You can change the words up. So again, you'd go back and say, well, I'm sorry that that is hard for your planning, but I
Mm-hmm.
do live with a disease, which makes it hard for me to plan. And there's a chance that if I do come, I might have to cancel, or I might have to come late, leave early. You just go back to your message. You
Mm-hmm.
don't follow into a deeper argument or discussion, and you just kind of keep rephrasing your same message. That's the broken record, and it might help you stick to those boundaries.
Right.
You also may have a partner, ally, a teammate in your family who can be a helpful person. So you reach out to that person, that sibling, that aunt, that relative who's helpful, and say, Aunt Susan, I really need your help this year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stay the whole amount of time. I can't eat this and this. Maybe also not all families are honoring the safety measures of the pandemic as well. You may want to say, I
Yes.
need to wear a mask. You may want to say, I need to be outside. You
Yes.
may want to say, I can't come in person. I'm just doing a Zoom call with you this
Yeah.
year during this danger.
Yeah.
So if you can get an ally in your family or in your friend group or in your work group who can help you,
Mm-hmm.
very helpful to have someone kind of beside you
Right.
delivering the same message. So those are a couple things to think about that are quite early on in your planning.
Right.
But I bet none of this is new. I bet most people are going
Mm-hmm.
to be going into situations with family, friends, coworkers they've known for years and years, if not their whole life. So you
Right.
can probably already predict. I bet you can all tell us what challenges are going to come up already.
Yes.
Rehearse it in your mind. Say it out loud. Put a plant in a chair and pretend it's that relative who you know is going to give you a hard time, and talk through your conversation with that relative. Say what you want to say. Practice it and rehearse it, so when you're in person or over Zoom, it comes out calmly and clearly, and
Right.
you feel good about articulating your needs. But
Right.
above all, and Lindsay and I both agree this, you do not have to apologize. You live
Right.
with a headache disease. It is not your fault. These are your boundaries. This is your right, and you do not need to apologize for it.
I like how you said that. I think that what I try to get across to people, and what is most freeing to me, is you don't need anyone else's validation. You don't really need to feel bad that they don't understand you. That is just a feeling that you might need to learn to be free of. And you might, for years and maybe even forever, get the same attitude from certain people about the fact that you get sick, or that you have to leave, or even that you say certain things about that you have a migraine, or that you had a cluster attack, or that you have a headache every day. And it doesn't really, you might learn to make sure that that just doesn't matter to you, and that you have hundreds or thousands of people in these Facebook groups or whatever groups online that you can go to that understand you. Always remember that all these people have your back, that we understand you. So I
Yeah.
think that learning to give yourself freedom from needing these people to understand you, I think is the most important. It's the best feeling. It's the best thing to. It's the
Oh,
best goal in my mind.
I'm thinking of the weight that sits on so
Right.
many people's shoulders, having to care for or prove or try
Mm-hmm.
to accommodate someone else. Imagine the freedom of lifting that weight off,
Right.
giving that back to the person who's asking it of you, saying that is not my burden. And I would
Mm-hmm.
even say, what if you wrote down this letter, wrote it down on a piece of paper, that I
Mm-hmm.
no longer am going to feel guilty for caring for myself and my migraine disease? And what if you either burned it in the fireplace or threw it in the ocean and really just did something symbolic to let go of this guilt that you may have been carrying around for your whole life?
Right. Yes, I love that idea, and I love that topic. We could do a whole podcast on that topic.
Yeah,
It's not your job to make other people, everyone understand your disease. It
I
just
like
isn't,
that.
and you
You
don't
know,
need everyone's validation.
and when you're with any of these relatives, friends, coworkers who give you a hard time, I want you to imagine Lindsay's right here and Dawn's right here, and we're saying, this is not your fault, it is not your responsibility, and you don't have to apologize for caring for yourself.
Just go
Imagine we're
enjoy some
there.
turkey.
That's right. That's right. Giving you permission and support. Bring these topics to a safe place, like Move Against Migraine, a safe, closed group where you want to talk to each other.
Right.
Bring it up, because I bet if someone posted on this topic how they're feeling, you're going to get so many responses of people also want to share that they're going through similar challenges, emotions, or different challenges and emotions. But it's so nice to connect and know that you're not alone, you're not unusual, you're not weak,
Yes.
and you're not selfish.
Right.
You
Right.
have the rights to self-care. And the more you care for yourself and your migraine disease, your headache disease, be it, as you say, cluster, NDPH, the more you care for yourself, you can also care for your family, do your work, take care of what you do in your household better, as we all know, when you are managing proactively to the best you can your health and your headache disease.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our awesome topic of getting through the stress of the holidays, intersecting with COVID and everything that's going on?
Well, I would like everyone to think about, as they go through this time, what brings them joy and what doesn't.
Right.
And if nothing in this time brings you joy, that's okay too. You don't even have to kind of dig into the holiday season. It may be something outside of a holiday, but I'd like everyone to do something for themselves that they enjoy, even if it's short, even if it's small. Just think about what matters to you. Try and focus on that, and know that this is a year that will go down in history as a very difficult year, and just all expectations should be off this year. Go easy on yourself, care for yourself and your loved ones. And, or if you are feeling isolated and alone, connect with others via any way that works for you. To kind of get through this time with the best experience possible.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Buse. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Happy holidays, whatever that means to you. And join us again next week on Heads Up, the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. Bye, everybody.